Welcome, everybody, to the Grapevine Open Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Teddy, and I'm serving as your host for the month of June. So this is my last one for the moment. So this is the AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. You can enjoy the weekly Grapevine Open Meetings, every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time on this virtual platform. The meeting is recorded and then replayed as a podcast every Friday on all podcast platforms at aagrapevine.org and on our YouTube channel. This is an open meeting, which means everyone is welcome. We are glad you are all here, especially any newcomers. If you are new to AA and want to learn more about our program of recovery from alcoholism, we encourage you to find an AA group in your area by using the official AA Meeting Guide app, available free via your device's App Store. Contact with group members will help you find a sponsor and help you learn about the AA program of recovery. And at this point, I am going to read you the daily quote from the AA Grapevine. I'm going to do that by going to the AA Grapevine app, which is on my cell phone here. And that's the first thing you see is the daily quote. You can also get it in your email box as well. No matter how I'm feeling in the morning when I read the daily quote, I always feel better. So this is the daily quote today. We cannot wholly rely on friends to solve all our difficulties. A good advisor will never do all our thinking for us. He knows that each final choice must be ours. And that's from AA co-founder Bill W. in the August 1961 Grapevine. And that article was repeated in the language of the heart, and the title of the article is This Matter of Honesty. As I said, you can sign up at aagrapevine.org to receive the daily quote as a daily email or have it on the app. I do both, so I get a double helping. So an excerpt from this month's magazine, and today I'm going to read from the printed magazine because I get both print and digital with my Grapevine Complete subscription. And I have all these lovely little bookmarks from different places that my AA travels have taken me to. And this one's from Utah, Area 69. So thank anyone from Utah on here. Hello. And there's a lovely the responsibility statement printed on that, reprinted with the permission of AA World Services, Inc. It's important that we ask permission. So today I'm going to read from this article in this month's June Grapevine, and this article is called Lessons Learned of this story. And here's the quote. I used to hate being what I used to call a retread. I thought it made me weak or less than. Today, I understand relapse is not a requirement for sobriety, but that is a part of my story, and God will use it to help others. Today, I thank God for the lessons I learned from all my relapses. I learned the importance of that old, not so stupid saying, keep coming back. So that's from the Grapevine today. And also going to read you a quote from our big book. And this bookmark's from Vermont, Area 70. Anyone from Vermont on? Hi. So this is from page 132, The Family Afterward. And the quote is, "So we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic experience out of the past. But why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered and have been given the power to help others." And a few lines on, it says, "We are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free." So, thank you, big book. That's my original big book. You can see it's falling apart, which is a good sign because lots of use. I do have a nicer one in a nice cover, but that's the one I got when I was, I don't know, 5 days sober. So it's a lot of value to me. So this is a 2-speaker meeting. There will be no sharing by attendees, so please sit back, relax, and listen. We often hear that it's best to try and identify with the speakers rather than compare your story with theirs. And so our first speaker today is Nancy H. From Arizona. If you'd like to, there we go. Hi, Nancy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nancy, and I am an alcoholic. My home group is Free at Last in Tucson, Arizona. Should any of you find your way to Tucson, please join us every Tuesday night, 6:30. My sobriety date is July 17th, 1988, which the Grapevine app, which I too have on my phone, in my email, all over the place, tells me is 37 years, 11 months, and 7 days ago. If you don't have this, I recommend it because it's very cheering. I mean, you start the day thinking, okay, I'm one more day down the road. And sometimes I just think, oh, okay, thanks. I have a not necessarily usual story for AA because there's nothing in my background that particularly would lead you to believe I'd turn out to be an alcoholic. I had kind and loving parents, a sister to whom I'm still close, many friends. I went to good schools. I went to things like tennis camps and stuff like that. People behaved really well toward me, but the problem was I was the child in question, and I never got anything. I never felt like I fit in. For a while, I was sure I was adopted when I learned about the possibility of adoption. And then I looked in my mother's photo album and saw pictures of her pregnant. And I thought, well, okay, maybe I got mixed up at the hospital. I then came to believe, as is true, that I was part of the family, but just a strange misfit. And I couldn't hear, people could tell that there was something wrong with me. And they tried to help, but I couldn't hear anybody who did. For instance, when I was in high school, when I was a senior in high school, I spent more time in the assistant principal's office, the disciplinarian part, than anybody else in my class. And I never could figure out why, because I was a straight A student. I did have perfect SATs. I did what I thought I was supposed to do for them, but I couldn't hear what they were trying to say. And I went on with my life, by which I mean I sort of coroned like a ball on a pool table. Went off to college. By the middle of my junior year, it was when lots of people were dropping out to find themselves. And I thought dropping out was a great idea. I didn't want to find myself. I didn't want you to find me. I simply felt dropping out was good. So I went home, and my father suggested strongly I needed to get a job, for which I was completely unqualified, but I did get a job. And I met a nice young man, and we got married. And he was in law school at the time. He finished law school. We ultimately had two sons, moved to the suburbs. I sort of did what I thought I was supposed to do. And all the time, mainly what I was doing was drinking. That was what I thought was my real life. And the rest were just chores I had to get through to get to my real life. My husband knew something was wrong, didn't know what, and he suggested a geographic, that we move to the country. I was not very excited about that. I wasn't even sure where the country was, but he suggested the wine country, which I thought would work out really well. And that was how I came to be in the Napa Valley. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and divorced me, which of course stunned and infuriated me. How could this man do this to wonderful me? And so I moved into town. We did everything we could think of with the children. That is, they both moved with me and went back to him on the weekends. Then one lived with me and one lived with him. Then you get the idea. And I had to get a job. So I did. I got a job in a winery. Now, partly that's the only real industry where I was living, but also employee discount is much better than grower's discount, I discovered. Plus, it's very cheering to go to work and have 10,000 gallons worth of wine right there through the next door. And it went on like this, just down, 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 until finally I was living in this funky little house. My bedroom was very dark because somebody had enclosed the porch and turned it into a storage shed. And I felt awful living there, not because I thought I deserved better, but because I thought I really sort of didn't deserve to live. And what finally happened was the alcohol stopped working. I don't know that I ever would have been able to quit if I still got what I needed, but I didn't, by which I don't mean I got sober. I mean, it didn't stop the voices in my head. It didn't stop the pain. It didn't do what I needed. And that was probably the lowest point in my life. I didn't know what to do. And a friend of mine who is a licensed mental health professional came to see me one Sunday and said, I have really been worried about you. I think you're an alcoholic. I was ecstatic, which was not the reaction she expected, because I was sure I was crazy and you all would come to lock me up. And I had reason to think this. I used to cross the living room on my hands and knees so you out there wouldn't see me. But I thought, notice she did not say you are not crazy or you are sane or anything like that. She just said, I think you might be an alcoholic. I said, this is fabulous news. I have a bottle of champagne in the fridge. We must open it and celebrate. And she just stared at me, as apparently that was not the response she tried to elicit. So it ended up she talked and I drank the champagne. And then I had to rest. And I knew there was a 6-pack of beer in the fridge. And I thought, well, that will be my last drink. But by the time I got up from my rest, my teenage son and his friends had come by and they had drunk the six pack because it never occurred to them that could possibly be the last alcohol in the house. So somewhere on the shelf of the St. Helena Safeway is my last drink. Well, probably it's gone by now, but the bottle of champagne turns out to be it. I did not know what to do with this information. I knew I couldn't drink, but I did go back to therapy because I had quit because I was sure my therapist would discover I was crazy and she would lock me up. So after a couple of weeks, she informed me she had told the receptionist I could never come back till I had gone to AA. So that was how I got to AA. It's sort of like a mental health professional sent me, but it was the fear that I wouldn't have a mental health professional anymore. So I walked into there was a community service thing on the front page of our local paper, and there was a meeting on Tuesday night, an AA meeting. So I went. And all I knew about AA was having seen Days of Wine and Roses on TV. So I knew it was in black and white, and you were all old men in badly fitting suits. So when I got there, I put my hand in the door and pulled it back to be sure it was still skin colored. I was tracking really well at this point. So lucky for me, I came to a meeting that was a big book study. Not that I knew what the big book was, or that what I did discover was I could no longer read, which came as quite a shock. Or I could read, but very painstakingly. So I bought a big book. I thought, okay, so these people are sort of like a bookstore, which turns out to be true in an odd sort of a way. I bought a book and I took it home and I read it from one dust jacket to the other. I did not understand anything at all in it until I got to one of the stories in the end where the line was, I was judging myself by my intentions, but the world was judging me by my actions. And that opened my mind a bit and explained so much why I always thought I was trying to be good, and trying was the operative word, of course. And I couldn't understand why people didn't see how good I was. I mean, in the sense of being a good person and trying to do the right thing. And I thought, oh, it's because I didn't actually do the right thing. I just wanted to. That was stunning to me. So I went back to this meeting every Tuesday. It was before the meeting guide. It turns out there was one other meeting in my town, but it was a closed meeting, so it wasn't listed in the front page of the newspaper, and I didn't know about it. So I lived from Tuesday night to Tuesday night, and when I was maybe 5 weeks sober, the position of group treasurer came up. So I raised my hand to volunteer, and they all just stared at me. And I said, no, really, I could do this because my job is I'm a controller, which was my job title at the time, my most favorite job title I've ever had. And the old timer who founded the meeting looked at me and said, oh, honey, aren't we all? And they all laughed. And I thought, oh, apparently, AA consists of deranged accounting types. But I did get the joke only a year later. The next thing that came up was alternate general service rep. And they let me do that. And I said, what do I have to do? And they said, see that blonde woman, you just follow her around to various meetings. And I thought, okay. At the next meeting, the general service rep announced she was moving. And everybody looked at each other and they looked at me and they said, congratulations, Nancy, you are our new GSR. I was 6 weeks sober at this point. And for years, I thought they did it to keep me away from the coffee pot. because in that room, if you plugged the coffee pot into the wrong socket, you knocked out all the electricity for the AA meeting and the NA meeting next door. And I was sure they could tell by looking, I was exactly the sort of person who would do that. And it wasn't until years later that they let me do it because they knew I needed a long-term commitment that would tie me to the earth. And that's how they were willing to give up their own direct participation with AA to keep me sober, which really touches me. And I had occasion to go back to California last month for the funeral of an old friend. And I saw the woman in an AA meeting who had been the GSR whom I replaced, who was at the very first meeting I had walked into. And I was so happy to see her and another couple of people that were already sober when I got to AA, and there they still were. I thought that's very, very comforting. So life went on. I came to AA. After I got my big book, I saw people had grapevines. So I am happy to say I got a Grapevine subscription. I have had at least one, sometimes two, and oddly enough, once three that come to my mailbox every month ever since. And I find it incredibly helpful. I take mine in to my home group after I read it because we have a lot of people who do prison work. They can't bring the paper grapevines in anymore, but I'm really happy to report that in Arizona, all the state prisons supply pads to all the prisoners, and all grapevine things online are available to all the prisoners in the state of Arizona, in the state prisons. And that's a really important thing for all of us. Because it's purely the few times I've gone in, when the Sally Port door closes, I am always very grateful when I come out and the Sally Port door closes behind me, but it's purely the grace of God that I am not inside, that I get to get in my car and go back home. I think it is true that God protects drunks and fools. Into both categories I fall. So I have been sober a long time, and I've been, as I told you, I got into general service way, way too soon. But for those of you thinking about it, if you go in really early, it's not nearly as confusing because everything everybody said to me in AA sounded really odd. So I wasn't at all distinguishing between service oddity and general recovery oddity. I just thought it was all lumped in one bucket, which in fact I sort of do. Grapevine has been a really important part of my sobriety, and especially I feel so grateful that I got to serve on the Grapevine board for 6 years. And I am wearing my Victor E t-shirt that the board gave me when I rotated off as chair of the board. And I keep it in my stash of workout t-shirts, so at least 3 times a month, I get reminded of the grapevine and what it's meant to be. I just continued. The other thing about AA that I want to stress is that wherever you go, there is AA. I mean, I have gone to AA meetings in places where I did not speak the language. Like Budapest, where Hungarian does not really relate to French or Spanish or English directly. And yet they knew what I said. I knew what they said. It was remarkable. And this was in the days when AA wasn't legal in Hungary. So one of the men at the meeting drove me to where all my friends were staying. And I got out of the car and went to join them. And they said, "Who is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's a friend." And they said, "This is really odd. Wherever we go, you have friends." And I thought, yes, that's really true. Wherever we go, I have friends, all because of AA. It's been a wonderful journey. And where I was going with everyone, when I came to Arizona, my husband was concerned because I had never lived more than 90 miles from the hospital where I was born. But it was fine and it was seamless because AA took me in. And when my husband died last year, it was my home group that put on the memorial service. And it's family. It's sobriety has been really the greatest gift in my life, with the possible exception of my children, but I wouldn't have my relationship with my children if I didn't have sobriety. So thank you all for my life. I'm deeply grateful.
Thank you so much, Nancy. What a beautiful share. Thank you. I related to so much. And particularly, the first thing you said, a strange misfit. And, that was my experience until I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like, finally, I found somewhere that I belong. I always felt the outsider, the misfit. And so, yeah, it's nice not to be a misfit these days, or a misfit in the most beautiful way. How about that? I also had the same experience with this beautiful book that they handed me in the rehab I was in, and I didn't understand a word of it. But I went to a meeting while I was in rehab, and they were reading one of the stories from the back. And when I heard that story, I didn't identify with the woman's recovery, but I did identify with the way that she described this illness. And I had that realization, oh, I might be an alcoholic. And oh, that means I probably need this thing called recovery too. So, and as you know, we have a 5th edition on the way with 26 new stories in it. So I'm really hoping, and that should be out either later this year or early next year. And I'm hoping there'll be more of those moments for those people out there who haven't found us yet. Like you, I came into general service way too soon, but hasn't produced any baleful results that I'm, to quote Bill, that I'm aware of yet. There's still time to go, and the story's not over. But yeah, like you, I had a home group, and I wanted to belong. And the only commitment that wasn't filled was the general service representative. And when they announced that they were going to waive the suggested sobriety requirement, my hand shot up, not knowing what I was getting into, but wanting to belong to my home group. And that is, I thought about that. And there was a time when I thought about that and I thought, well, that was cute. But now it's like, wow, how beautiful was that? Right. And that's actually been my experience ever since. I just keep raising my hand because I want to belong. And my home group's gotten just a little bit bigger than it used to be. So now we have time for some announcements. So the 7th tradition of AA states that every AA group should be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. AA members can help by contributing to your group, your local office, your area, your district, and to the General Service Board. There's a great pamphlet called Self-Support, Where Money and Spirituality Mix, and you can find it at aa.org. Grapevine, however, does not accept contributions. But of course, we do have expenses. And so if you want to support the Grapevine, the best way to do that is to subscribe to the magazine, either the Grapevine or Lavinia, in print or online, or both. You can subscribe to the magazine in print or online by visiting aagrapevine.org. You can also subscribe to the app by searching for AA Grapevine on the App Store on your phone. You can also purchase Grapevine books, and I have a number of them, and I find them really great to read with sponsees who have maybe been around a while and are familiar with the 12 and 12 and the Big Book and other literature. This is one of my favorites, Prayer and Meditation, reading that with a couple of people right now. You can get those, plus greeting cards that we now produce, and other items at your local AA central office. And if you do that, you're supporting both the Grapevine and your local central office. You can also visit the online Grapevine store at aagrapevine.org. The AA Grapevine Carry the Message project allows you to help us help others by providing magazine subscriptions to those who are incarcerated, hospitalized, living in remote areas, or stuck at home. So visit aagrapevine.org and click on Carry the Message to learn more. We also invite you to listen to our other weekly podcast, our elder sibling, the AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour, which is available for free on all podcast platforms. And you guessed it, it's available also at aagrapevine.org. In fact, why don't you just visit aagrapevine.org and explore? There's just so much there to enhance your sobriety. For all podcasts, be sure to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform so you can catch all the episodes. And finally, please also follow the AA Grapevine and Lavinia on Instagram and YouTube. If you happen to have a deaf a friend in AA who uses an ASL, American Sign Language, we have a channel on our YouTube account of videos of deaf members for deaf members telling their stories in American Sign Language. Now it's time to move on to our second speaker today. And our second speaker is Bryana, from Area 8 down there in San Diego Imperial. Bryana, take it away.
Hi, thank you, Teddy. Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Nancy, for sharing your story too. My name is Bryana. I'm an alcoholic, and that is not by choice. Well, I mean, it's genetics and the trauma of being alive and being human, I guess, a combination thereof. I didn't come to AA because I wanted to. It was a suggestion, a strong suggestion, both from my community and my family and the Department of Homeland Security. And so I was gifted my sobriety date, which is July 15th of 2007. Because I had some relatives that made some poor choices, and I was hanging out with them a lot at the time. And so I was kind of suspect by association. But that scared me straight in a way. I had been drinking and causing, mayhem in my own life, thinking that there would be no consequences because I was 21 at the time, and I was pretty and smart, and I spoke multiple languages, and I thought it was the top of the food chain. It turns out I was not, and I was not able to leave the county of San Diego for 6 months, which was very, very humbling. Coincidentally, at the time, I was also working at a DUI program here in San Diego. And the Monday after my sobriety date, I went to work, and one of the people working there, he was an old timer too. And I told him, you know what? I think I'm going to give one of those AA meetings a try. And he said, oh my God, I'm so glad we've been saving you a seat for a while. And I was just really like caught off guard by his reaction. I was like, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, I only drink from like Thursday through Sunday, when I'm not going to college and working. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Um, I wake up in different countries sometimes when I go out and party, but that happens. It's just the area where we live in, close to a different country. It's not a big deal. So apparently there was a council of old timers looking out for me and just like taking bets on when I was either going to get arrested or get thrown into rehab or something else, end up in the psych ward. I just got lucky that I was scared straight instead of having all these horrible things happen. And there's this thing that I see a lot nowadays, like, oh, you got sober so young, because I'm 40 now. I'm not 21, I'm 40. And you got lucky, like you had your whole life ahead and you could do everything correctly. And turns out that the human condition doesn't just go away once you get sober. You're still human. You're just a little bit more aware in dealing with all these things that you have to deal with, in your life. Um, and so I related to something of Nancy's story, because when I got sober, they told me, well, you should go to this meeting um, at this place here in Oceanside, California. And there's a meeting at noon on a Sunday morning. And I thought, okay, whatever, I'll go. I'm taking it easy. I'm not going to get into any more trouble. So I went to the meeting. And when I walked in, in my mind, I have this one memory. I know it wasn't like that, but in my mind, it was just a circle of like rocking chairs with like old white dudes, basically grandpas, and me. And I'm this like little Mexican girl. And I thought, if I'm going to stay sober, I don't want to be sitting in a rocking chair with all these grandpas. No offense to all the grandpas, they're really cool. But so I thought, I'm 21, like I'm still in college. I need to um, do what 21-year-olds do. Like I'm going to do it sober, but my life is not over yet. And so I looked in the schedule, and I am really lucky. I'm really, really blessed that San Diego has all these young people's meetings, young people in AA meetings. And so I went to a meeting that was in the basement of a hospital, and and it was just like an out of body experience, because when I walked in, there was a lady sharing, and she kind of looked like me. And she shared a lot of things that I had gone through, and and describing the way she felt in a way that I related to. And that really shocked me, because I didn't think that I would right away listen to something so similar. And it also kind of scared me, but it also made me curious. And when the meeting ended, I asked her, like, oh, can we go out for coffee or something? Um, I just, I just really related to what you shared, and I'm kind of struggling right now. And I thought you were really cool. And honestly, I kind of had a crush on her at the time. But I was trying to do things right, I guess. And I eventually asked her to be my sponsor, and she told me, well, if you want to do this, this is what we're going to do. She set all these boundaries, which I wasn't familiar with. And she told me, I'm going to teach you the way that it was taught to me. And we're going to work this program this way. And you're going to come to my house once a week or twice a week. And we're going to read the big book and the 12 and 12. And you're going to get a service commitment at your home group. And so for some reason, even though like my upbringing was in a place where certain substances, fringy substances, were manufactured by my relatives, I never got into smoking, not cigarettes, not anything else. And so my very first commitment in AA was to carry the butt cans and, throw away the cigarette butts after the meeting and before the meeting. And I thought that was really funny. And people also made fun of me because of that. But, it was something. It kept me coming back. I didn't want the hospital grounds to be because it wasn't really the hospital grounds. We were like in this ditch between the hospital parking lot and like another medical facility where we would kind of go try to hide and the kids would smoke and after the meeting after the meeting. But it kept me sober during that time that I didn't think I had any more willpower. It was the service. And then we started trying to bid for different young people's conferences. And we were awarded ACIPA in oh gosh, I can't remember when it was. It was a long time ago. It was like 2012, I want to say, maybe 2013. And so I became the Spanish interpreter for that conference. There was like one or two Spanish speakers, but I still felt like it was a big deal, that I didn't think much of myself, and I was able to provide that service and be with the organizing, the host committee, and think I was really cool and special. And and from that point on, it was always, you have to be of service. You have to be of service. I got the bright idea during this time also that I should probably settle down, because now I am a sober lady and I am a contributing member of society in my community and no longer a threat to human safety. So I should probably get married. And I got married. I moved to Hawaii. I get married to a Marine. To all the service members listening, thank you for your service. And we moved to Hawaii. And as soon as I landed, the first thing I did was like look up meetings. Before I even moved, actually, I got in contact with a friend of a friend that lived on the island, and a lot of the military spouses were wondering, like, "Oh my God, Bryana, how do you have so many friends?" And I just thought, oh, I don't know, I'm just like really friendly, because I didn't want to obviously blow up my anonymity. And I ended up getting adopted by all these like people on the island, and I developed like um, a Hawaiian family basically. And I got a new sponsor right away. Like I think like 2 weeks after getting there, I had a new sponsor and a new home group and a new service commitment, and then I started taking all these kids that were in rehab on the base, and I would take them to meetings outside of base, and it was kind of like our own little panel that we started in a way, and it was really fun. I remember just having so much fun, having the time of my life. Also, I didn't have a job. I mean, I was kind of struggling, but it was fine because I was just doing all the service everywhere, just going to hospitals and the psych ward and going to panels on bass and doing service. I think I was like a GSR for like 2 minutes for this meeting in Kailua that's called TYG, thank you God. And it's like Monday through Friday. I think it starts at 8. I can't remember, 8 in the morning or something. And we meet up by the beach in Hawaii, which is, it's like paradise. You just live in paradise, but it's obviously the environment was really helpful and very conducive of being stable and staying sober. But it's just the spirituality of the community and like reconnecting with my higher power in a way. I remember when I first got sober, my first sponsor told me, we're going to make a list of the 10 things why you would drink. Number 10 being the least likely reason why you would drink, and number 1 being the reason why. If this happens, you're absolutely going to drink. Like there's no other way. And so my number 1 reason at that time was, if I ever lose a child, I'm absolutely going to drink. There's just no way. And so when we were living in Hawaii, I got pregnant and I had a couple of incidents of domestic violence with my now ex-husband, and I lost the baby. And so I happened to also be living with my sponsor, my new sponsor in Hawaii, and her husband. And between the two of them, they have like 60 years of sobriety. And so I wake up at like 4 a.m. and I tell her, I'm bleeding and, this is happening and I don't feel good and we're going to go to the hospital. And so my husband takes me to the hospital and I lose the baby. And I remember the love and concern and like my sponsor's voice calling my husband. And I remember her yelling in the phone, just tell her to breathe, please tell her to breathe. And even though it was like one of the most horrifying things that a person can go through, I remember not feeling alone. And that's what AA has given me. Like my whole life, the things that I have, the privileges, the simple, ordinary, routine, small life that I have is my like my best friend. I met her in AA. Her child is my godson, and just a group of people that everywhere that I've worked with, done service and gone to conferences and like different um, cities and states and even countries. I was invited to speak in Mexico City. I love Mexico City. It's like my favorite city in the whole world because there's so much history and it's just beautiful and awesome and fun and food is amazing. And I got invited to speak over there. And from that point, I met like other friends and that are, obviously in AA. And I have this like now adoptive a uncle that lives in Costa Rica, and him and his wife keep in touch with me and tell me, oh, you should come visit. So like now I have a place to go in Costa Rica. And from them, I met this other, I call her like my honorary sponsor in Cuba. So then I went to Cuba and I went to meetings in Cuba, and I took some literature to them, and that was really fun and amazing. And then it's just all of these, regaining my connection and with myself and my higher power as I understand them, and also my family and my community, gaining stability and learning that the most valuable thing that I have, it's not, obviously I have some cool skills like after through all the years and you know learning and going to college and going to graduate school. And like, if you remember, I mentioned when I first got sober, like basically the Department of Homeland Security gave me my sobriety date. And now, almost 19 years later, I'm working for the Department of Homeland Security. Like, actually, in 10 minutes, I have to go into a hearing in court. So it's come full circle where I used to be a menace to society, and now I not only I'm not just existing, but I'm also contributing, and I'm doing good things for my community. And it's all these things that I learned how to be like just an average stable person that I've enhanced into being someone that enjoys helping my neighbors and my community and my family. I mean, I met my husband about 15 years ago. He in AA. I met him in AA, and I thought that he hated me. Um, and then we started dating 4 years ago, and he told me like I've been in love with you for all these 10 years, and you never caught on. And I told him like, I'm not just an alcoholic. I'm neurospicy, and so you have to tell me straightforward what you need done or what you want, because otherwise I can't understand, hints and some social cues. And he said, I've been dying to just hold you in my arms and be with you and build a life together. Um, and it was because of AA, because I had a good foundation where we were friends. We had been friends for 10 years and doing service and organizing, workshops and conferences and all kinds of things, and traveling together with a big group of people, of other AA members. Um, and now I sit at home, I work part-time, in my laptop with my cats. I'm sorry if you hear them meow or something knock over, because they're my little tyrants, my two cats. But I have this peace in my life and this integrity that, I wanted to come back to it. Thank you so much. I don't know if that made a lot of sense. I hope it did. I'm kind of like stressing out about this trial that I'm about to go into in a couple minutes, but all of these things were because I have been granted, are because I stepped away from being in my own way. Like I stopped being an obstacle for my own growth and for my own healing. I humbled myself a little bit and reluctantly followed all of the little slogans and catchphrases that old timers tell us, like, oh, just keep it simple and first things first. It still to this day grinds my gears, but it's true. I cannot deny how effective they were and keeping me alive and keeping me relatively sane and happy. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share. And I'm going to have to log off because I have to go into court now. But thank you, everyone. Thank you for keeping me sober and being here.
Thank you, Bryana, for being here today and for showing up. And I related to a lot of what you had to say, especially the part about stepping out of the way. And for me, which means just kind of giving my ego a nice hug and say, go sit in the corner. I'll be back later. But right now I have to step into a different universe where I get to be of service and thoughtful of others. And both of you, Bryana and Nancy, thank you. I'm so glad that you came back, right, when you went to your first AA meetings and saw what can be the experience of a lot of people when they go to their first AA meeting, is they see people like me. I mean, I wasn't always this age. I came to AA when I was 43, I think. But now I'm, a typical AA member according to our membership survey. Sort of late 50s, early 60s, white, gray hair, and male. So yeah, I'm glad that particularly in our literature and the number of meetings we had, and how the pandemic was such a blessing in disguise, because people from different tribes of sobriety were able to find each other and stick with each other and roll with each other. That's what I did when I came in. I found another group of newcomers like me, and we rolled together. And we find our our big tribe in AA, but we also find our closer family, and it is also for them. And to not forget everyone in that, but it's not an us and them. It's like a we, and it's so much more. And all of us are welcome here. With that, let's start to wrap it up here. So, please let your friends know about our meeting. This is an open meeting, which means that anyone is welcome to attend. Closed meetings are for people who have a desire to stop drinking. But anyone can attend an open AA meeting. That's what it means by open. And so it's ideal if you want to bring a friend who wants to learn more about Alcoholics Anonymous, or, as sometimes happens, bring family or even, a spiritual advisor. Or if you are, being of service in one of our cooperation with the professional community committees or one of our public information committees, think about who you might meet, whether it's a professional, mental health professional, a doctor, or anyone who you think might be interested to come to an open AA meeting and learn more and find out more. So now it's that time of the meeting where we will go back to Nancy, and I am going to ask Nancy if she would like to close the meeting with a prayer of her choice. There we are. Thank you, Nancy.
Well, my home group, and I highly recommend this, closes with a moment of silence. But as we here close with a prayer, I would like to use the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bryana. I hope Bryana had to go, as she mentioned. So thank you to Bryana, who there was another speaker scheduled today, but that speaker is on a 12th step call right now. So Bryana stepped up at the very last moment to do this. So we were so lucky. I was so lucky to have a second speaker ready when I kind of woke up and checked my cell phone this morning. And thank you also, Nancy, for being with us today. And what a wonderful couple of speakers we've had, and what a wonderful experience this has been. Getting to secretary this meeting for the month of June. I'll be back off the screen. And who knows, I may see you all again sometime in the future at this meeting on screen. And with that, we will close the meeting today.